good?
We're good.
Yeah. All right, I just wanted to mention some folks who are sitting in the back who I invited to be here with us today. They were Bill McKenzie's neighbors, and were his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And I have shared this journey with them every step of the way that I've done this over the course of the last 20 plus years. So I wanted them to be able to be here because this is kind of the culminating experience of it all. So this is the first time giving this presentation, as it is a combination of a story of his wonderful military career and then of a trip that my mom and I took last year, 8 years later, to retrace his steps. So I encourage all of you to please look at his extensive, beautiful, wonderful collection. It does not get seen nearly enough, but it is full of treasures that he loved and that I have now since become to love as well. So I am delighted and honored to share this story with you all. So thank you for being here. Can everybody see this kind of okay? Okay. So how it started. I first met Mr. Bill in 2002 when I joined Recent Community Volunteer Fire Company. We connected instantly. Me, a history major, him, a living history himself. Over the years, we shared stories, we shared laughter, memories, and countless moments. He became a mentor, a friend, and inspiration. So this vehicle here, didn't know it at the time, was owned by the man who owned my house before I bought it from him. It is a 1948 Dodge sedan. It is immortalized in my house because in the 1960s, it was easier to paint around a vehicle than it was to move it when it was in the basement garage of your house. So Mr. Bill and Miss Wilma bought it in the mid-90s, and he became the honorary Grand Marshal in all of the Memorial Day parades. So if this picture looks familiar, that is where that is taken from. That was one of the first things that we bonded over was the car that he had. So anyhow, so here we go. Sometime in the early 2000s, the fire department was invited to a holiday gathering at Mr. Bill's home, where he had a beautiful and extensive train garden. But while others were walking around and looking at the train garden, I got a little curious because I turned around and I looked at the wall, and it was covered in frames and memorabilia, and as you can see, it was quite the extensive collection. And I said to Mr. Bill, "Is that a Distinguished Service Cross?" And he said, "What do you know about the Distinguished Service Cross?" And I said, "Not much, but I want to know more." So this was just one of the things that was on the wall, again, that I'm looking at. This was his Army hat that he wore very proudly. We did bury this with him. Again, these were items that were on the wall that I'm looking at, so if you can see them, they're very yellowed. Distinguished Service Cross Award letters and articles from newspapers in 1945. There's this very handsome picture of a lovely man with a Croix de Guerre, thank you, which was from the Grand Duchess of Luxembourg. All of these things that I knew nothing about, but I was immersed and wanted to know. And I reached out to my friend Bill Hall, and the simple exchange between Bill McKenzie and myself opened up this amazing partnership, relationship, friendship, where he shared stories of his time of the war with me that he didn't share with very many other people, which again is why I wanted the Cox family to be able to be here, because this was something that I treasured with Mr. Bill. And again, he was such a modest man who didn't share these things. So with the help of Bill Hall, a local historian in Sykesville, we began researching, I really began researching Mr. Bill, because we thought he might be a candidate for the Medal of Honor based upon the information that she had shared with us. Unfortunately, if you recall, 1972, big fire in St. Louis, and all of the records from World War II through Vietnam were destroyed. And even though I have quite an extensive collection, and some of the original documentation of all of his citations and things, they couldn't verify that information. So we fell a little short on that. So here is the story of Bill McKenzie. While living, oh, hold on a second. Well, I've lost that one. Anyhow, so he was born in St. Clair, Pennsylvania, to Mary and George McKenzie in May of 1922. He was one of 9 children, 7 boys, 1 girl. He grew up during the Great Depression in a household that was defined by hard work, family, faith. His sister was his only surviving sibling, and she was at his memorial service with us when he passed away. After graduating from St. Clair High School, he went to work for the National Youth Administration, and he learned acetylene welding. It was a skill that eventually took him to Baltimore, where he secured a job at Oriole Gas Stoves. It was in Baltimore that he received his draft letter, "Greetings from Uncle Stan." He had registered for the draft in June of 1942, and on October 17th of that year, he officially entered the U.S. Army. He was just 20 years old. Well, at the time, he was only 19 years old. Oh no, what did I do? There we go, okay. He was inducted at Fort Meade, attended boot camp at Fort Wheeler, Georgia. He returned to Fort Meade and then was assigned to the 76th Infantry Division and sent to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin. He participated in winter maneuvers in Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, which sounds like it was a horrible nightmare in my opinion. But then he was transferred to Fort Dix, New Jersey as a replacement and joined the 80th Infantry Division as a messenger and runner. So I have found this picture, it is also over there, of Fort Dix, the folks all lined up in their dress uniforms in May of 1944. So you're saying, is Mr. Bill really in there? And I promise you he is. So he's in the center of the picture, but here's a better picture of him. So that's Bill McKenzie at 19 years old. So what exactly did 19-year-old Private William McKenzie do to earn the military's second highest Medal of Honor? His story is documented well in U.S. and Luxembourg newspapers and detailed in citations from the United States government and from the Luxembourg government. In July 1944, he boarded the converted ocean liner Queen Mary to Europe. He arrived in Glasgow, Scotland, and took a train to Southampton, England. So this is a map here kind of his tracks through Europe, and they are in green, and it's broken down throughout the presentation. But on August the 3rd, 1944, he crossed the English Channel to Utah Beach and into Normandy under heavy German artillery fire and survived. Then they combated across Europe, which you can see in this picture again following the green line. They encountered the Battle of Hedgerows, which had been ongoing since D-Day, which had obviously was in June of '44. General Bradley had instructed General Patton to break through. The 80th Division advanced quickly across France to the Seine River and the Sarre Basin, and then to the Siegfried Line. So the Siegfried Line is in this, you'll see it's the red line, and that was a defining line that was between the Allied forces and the German line. General Bradley instructed General Patton to break through. The 80th Infantry Division advanced quickly across France, and the Battle of Bulge began in the winter of 1944, and they were redirected their efforts from France now into Luxembourg and into Belgium. Mr. Bill said he recalled walking 30 miles one day and 32 miles the next day. Here are just some pictures of the troops that were going through as they were advancing through the French villages. Here is the line that I was telling you that they fought so hard to get, which was the dividing line and really the turn of the war in April of '44. All right, so Mr. Bill had this picture of the statue that hung on the wall. And he said, "Kate, this picture is me. This statue is me." And I said, "What do you mean it's you, Mr. Bill? You don't have a statue there." And he goes, "Yes, I am. Look, here's me. I'm there. I'm part of it when it was being dedicated, etc." And I said, "Okay, Mr. Bill, whatever." I don't think he ever thought that we'd go check it out. But as it would happen, my mom and I take a ski trip every year, and a ski trip is spending Kate's inheritance. So this is something that we've been doing for years. And this journey, so-called, begins in early 2024. Mom and I planned a trip to Amsterdam, Luxembourg, and Brussels. Mom was very eager to go and see the tulips in bloom, and I had another mission in mind that I wanted to go and follow Mr. Bill's steps. And Mom didn't think much of it at the time. "Sure, Kate, whatever you want to do." Little did she know. So here it is, the day of our trip. I am a planner. I am attached to my phone. I left my phone in Westminster, buried in my laundry basket. So here I am at the airport. What a way to start my trip. I've misplaced my phone. It's somewhere in my house, but after an hour, literally, of tearing my house apart, and I do mean literally, I'm afraid to go home and see the mess that I've created. We had to leave. I had 4 people sitting in my car in my driveway waiting to go to the airport. We were an hour late getting there. It was horrible. I'm devastated. I'm literally flying blind with all of my plans, my emails, my messages, my research, but for me, most importantly, no camera. I have my iPad and I'll blog as I can. So one of the things that Mom and I do on every trip is I do a online blog that everybody can follow our adventures, God bless you, for wherever we're going and what we see. And so it's pretty extensive of food and everything. It's just ridiculous. But anyhow, so I said that we would get to the other side and I would check in from there. So here I am, I'm very sad. My friends and their smart aleck comments, which if any of you, God bless you, if any of you have ever been to Covalent Spirits for History Shaken and Stirred, Scott Waters is one of the bartenders. He's one of my very dear friends, and he says in this thing, Jeff and I have decided that we're going to take up residence in your house and we're going to look for your phone. While we're there, we're going to drink your bourbon, we're going to smoke your cigars, and if we find your phone, we'll overnight it to you. So over the course of the week, I kept getting these updates from them. Sorry, Kate, no phone, but hey, those cigars and bourbon are really good. So, for the entire trip, I would have to rely on printed materials, and so as you saw, God bless you, things that I had pre-taken because my intention was I wanted to be able to share the story with people that I had met. Me leaving my phone at home actually turned into be a blessing in disguise. I just did not know that at the time. So here are some pictures, this is on our hotel room bed, of things that I took. And so in this image, you can see the Distinguished Service Cross citations, you can see the, Croix de Guerre. Thank you. Well, I'm going to point to you all. From now on, you can say that. Croix de Guerre. Here are German newspapers, here are Luxembourg newspapers, here is just pictures, here's all this type of stuff. So Mr. Bill had gone back to Europe in 1974 for the 30th anniversary of the 80th Infantry Division liberating Luxembourg. And it was quite the honor and extensive opportunity for him to be able to do that. Goodness gracious, God bless you. And so here is an image of the Croix de Guerre citation. Here's his dog tags. I had taken red poppies and just all this type of stuff that I had planned on spreading across the country as I went. So today, this is the story of William J. McKenzie, a young private in General George S. Patton's Third Army, stationed in Luxembourg during the brutal winter of 1944. It is also the story of an unforgettable adventure that my mom and I undertook together 80 years later to trace the steps of this remarkable man. So we get to Amsterdam. Mom is in seventh heaven. She gets to go to the Keukenhof and she sees flowers and flowers and flowers, and I do mean millions of flowers. And we bonded with our tour group, retired teachers, spirited young women, and one delightful 86-year-old lady who made Mom feel very spry, so she was happy not to be the oldest one in the group. I shared my story with Mr. Bill, with our fellow travelers, every opportunity that I could, and they eventually became cheerleaders, urging us on and forward. So the day that we arrived in Luxembourg, we toured the American Cemetery, where over 5,000 U.S. soldiers are buried, many of them lost in the Battle of the Bulge. It was established, oddly enough, on December 29, 1944, the very day that Mr. Bill earned the Distinguished Service Cross. General Patton, true to his word, was buried there with his sons. So there's General Patton's grave. It's a little fuzzy. Apologies on this. So we had hoped to hire a guide to be able to take me on this wonderful adventure because, let's see here, don't speak the language, don't know where I'm going, have no idea what is going on, but one, it's expensive, two, you have to know where you're going to hire a guide, and I wasn't sure what we were doing. So after lunch in the city, I looked at my mom and I said, "Are you ready?" And she said, "Sure." So this is the area that we're going to go try and find. Edelbrook or bust. So armed with only our intuition and some old documents, we struck out for the train station, getting very lost. And with the help of some kind of American students, we hopped on the train and a tram and a bus and walked a lot to get to Edelbrook. And so these are actual pictures that I took that day just again because I document everything. So here's Mom and I on the train, getting ready to go. And so why did I choose Edelbrook? I chose Edelbrook because, as I had mentioned, Mr. Bill was in Edelbrook in 1974. He was there to dedicate this memorial that he told us was him. So here he is that morning. Here he is in front of it, and I never bothered to look at it closely until I blew these pictures up, because it says George S. Patton on the back of it. Didn't know that literally until I got there. Anyhow, so Mom and I walk, and I do mean walk, and walk, and walk. And she says to me, Kate, I cannot go any further. See that wall up there? I'm sitting there. Come find me when you're done. Miraculously, that wall was the wall in front of the museum. Thank God. So we go in, and there's stairs, and she says, no, we're taking the elevator. So when you walk in, this museum is lovely. It's new. It's only been there for about 5 years. And again, I picked the museum because I knew they would speak English. And no one else spoke English. Because I can show you on the map here, and I'll show you this too. So Mom and I started our day down here in Luxembourg proper. Edelbrook is here. So by train, tram, and a lot of walking, we made it to here. I wanted to get up here. Enter Mona and Susan. So once we come inside the building, I pull out my folders and articles, and a museum volunteer named Mona, and Mona is in the blue in the front of the picture. She emerged from the office in tears and says, I've been praying for someone like you. Someone with a story of a soldier who survived, not just the war, but for 75 years after. I cried, she cried, we all cried. Susan is in the white, and she was British, and she still works there today. So here are some pictures of the museum itself. I had gone through and told Mona about Mr. Bill being there in '74. I had shared information with her that Bill had shared with me. They said, let's go look at the museum. And I said, but wait, you know, he brought his uniform back here in 1974. And I looked in your museum archives, and I believe, oh, sorry, thank you. Did I knock it out? Oh.
I didn't lose power.
Okay, thank you. Don't lose power. And I believe that I saw it in one of your diorama cases. And she says, really? And she says the name again, and I says, Private William J. McKenzie. He left a lot of things here. And she says, I think you're right, Kate. Come with me. So there is Private William J. McKenzie's uniform in the George Patton Museum in Luxembourg, in Edelbrook, Luxembourg. And so you may be saying, is it really? Mr. Bill was a little man, like all of 5'8", if he was that. So God love him. But this uniform was on a very short little man in a huge big diorama. So of course now I start crying again. And so I left his dog tags there with him and that kind of stuff, and just had an amazing thing. So excuse this video, but I thought it was important to share because you can see this. Oh no, wait a minute, where's the volume? We didn't check that part.
We did not. Okay, so that's just...
If not, I can just turn, I can...
sound bar, it's labeled.
Okay.
Try it now.
Nope. All right, I'll tell you what I'm saying. So anyhow, so I am emotional, as you can tell. I've just spent 2 hours at the museum. I've done oral history. I've given them all this information. I've given her all the links to all the videos that are in public broadcasting, that are in the National Archives, that are in all over the thing, that are just incredible things. And they are eating this up because they didn't have anyone that came in with a full story of a soldier, or ever had that before. So as you can see, I am a hot mess, but that's neither here nor there at this point. But so I truly believe, in my heart of hearts, I was striking out because I didn't have my phone with all of my notes, with all of my websites, with all of my stuff. I didn't have a driver. I didn't have any idea where I was going other than military citations that had names of towns. I couldn't read the language or read the stupid maps to know where the heck I was going. And I walk in, and I meet Mona, and I meet her husband, Ben, who decided they were going to take Mom and I on this incredible adventure to go find all of the places that are in the military citations and that Mr. Bill had spent so much time sharing with us. So that was absolutely a gift from God, from the angels above and the angels we met that day. So that is why I am a hot mess crying, realizing that that is what's going on, and that we are ready to embark on an adventure. So thanks to Mona and Ben, we're off on another adventure. No map or plan, just names and pictures of places Mr. Bill had been with hopes and dreams of finding them. So again, on this map, you can see kind of where he was in December 21st and 23rd in 1944. That was, oh wait, that's on this one, sorry. Now you can see it. December 21st and 23rd, 1944 was in Haystack. He then went to Ringel, Luxembourg, December 28th and 29th, 1944. And then in January of 1945, he was in Dahl. So these three places are places that we went to go visit, and they are significant for reasons that you will hear about in a minute. So just some general information, here is some images that we found in our research. This was Thanksgiving Day. These are men who were on the battleground, literally curled up in foxholes. Again, here's an outpost of, on the Bulge of soldiers who are bunkered down. Here's the snow and the view in Luxembourg in 1944. And then here is the sign that we found to go to Haystack. So Mr. Bell recalls walking 30 miles one day and 32 miles the next day to get to this town. On December 21st, 1944, they made a surprise night attack on Haystack and took the town. On December 23rd and 24th, on December 22nd, sorry, while guarding the command post, and this is again documented in these books, and this is coming directly from the American History Archives, from the military archives. And it says, on December 22nd, while guarding the command post, William McKenzie shot the driver of a German tank approaching the town. The truck crashed, and after a skirmish, all the German troops that were aboard were then killed right in front of the battalion headquarters. On December 23rd, he looked out a second-story farmhouse window and saw camouflaged Germans in white. He fired, waking the rest of the troops. 29 German tanks and half-tracks carrying 5,000 Germans surrounded the town against 263 Americans. The Americans set 11 vehicles on fire, causing the rest to retreat towards Bastogne. And as you recall, Bastogne is where everybody went in January to, they had to liberate Bastogne to get the Germans out. That was when they had the whole conversation about you're nuts for surrendering, all that kind of stuff. So once the Battle of the Bulge started, they drove in trucks all night, 180 miles away, going into these towns. And as I mentioned, I just kind of told you a little bit about his stuff. So here's actually an image of an American soldier who's squatted down in the front, and he has a bazooka, and what is exploding in the back is a German tank, according to the citation of the picture that was there. So Mr. Bill was interviewed by Military Experience, and it is on PBS's website, and it is the Battle of Haystack. I need to learn these German names, but anyhow, this battle. And so this is the conversation. All right, Heather, why won't this work now? I want to use, oh here, no, I got it, I think, I don't know. So this is the conversation that was recorded in the oral history project for that event. If I can get it to work.
We might not have audio.
No, I don't need audio, I just need my little mouse to work so I can bring this down. I want to bring this down so I can read it. Yeah, right? Okay, we'll try this again. The Battle of Haystack by William J. McKenzie. On or about December 22nd, 1944, the elements of the 2nd Battalion of the 319th Infantry Division of the 80th Infantry Division, supported by Company H, which Mr. Bill was a member of, made a night attack on Haystack and forced the Germans out. During the day of December 23rd, 1944, McKenzie was on guard duty at Company H command post on the main street when lo and behold, here comes a German truck into town. A tank blocked the road, and I cocked my rifle and put a round in the chamber and fired at the driver. The windshield shattered, but the truck continued on for about a half a block before it came to a stop in the middle of the square. At that time, excuse my language, all hell broke loose, and everyone started shooting at the truck. It was loaded with Germans that soon ceased to exist. On the evening of December 23rd, a clear moonlit night, when I was on guard duty again, Dead Check Charlie skimmed over the rooftops and dropped a bomb on the 2nd Battalion Combat Patrol, narrowly missing it, but put the gun turret of a TD beside it out of commission. I saw Dead Check Charlie clearly, but he went by so fast I did not get the chance to shoot. On the morning of December 24th, about daylight, something woke me. I looked out the second-story window and I saw men, camouflaged in white, sneaking along the road in the back of the house. Since I knew our men had no reason to be infiltrating, I opened fire. The shot woke everyone else in the town. The shooting went on for about 10 minutes, and we pinned down the Germans, which must have been the scouting element for the tanks, because lo and behold, a column of 29 German tanks and half-tracks loaded with men came up out of the draw in the back of the town and surrounded it. I figured this was the end of me, because we'd already heard about the massacre that had happened at Melamé. I figured I might as well just keep shooting until the end. The Germans never got off the half-tracks to attack. Using some bazookas and rifle grenades and the help of a couple of TDs and AT guns, we set 11 tanks and half-tracks on fire, and many Germans unfortunately burned to death in their seats. These were Hitler's elite SS troops. The other 18 tanks and half-tracks returned to the draw and continued on their way. Thus ended the Battle of Haystack. So here's a picture of a destroyed German vehicle that was in Luxembourg, and another one picture of a destroyed German tank. So I just wanted to share that. So here is 1974 picture, and this is Mr. Bill, who is second from the right, the short little man with, if you can see him. From the left. Next, okay. At an 80th Infantry Monument unveiling ceremony in Luxembourg. So why did I want to go to this place? Because this is where Mr. Bill was, and this was something that happened. Had no idea where this place was. But Ben is amazing, and he said, here you go, Kate. So along the side of the road from Haystack towards the city of Bastogne is this monument that was installed to commemorate the brave soldiers of the 80th Infantry Division. It was the 80th Infantry Division that provided the infantry leg of the U.S. forces that broke the siege of the 101st Airborne Division at Bastogne. From Bastogne, the 80th then fought their way to Haystack, Dietrich, and crossed the Schure to enter into Germany. So Mr. Bill was there, Mom and I wanted to be there. There's Moan and I with the background, and you can see, and if this is the picture from the ridge in 1944. And then that's a panoramic vision. All right, so from there, we went to Ringel, because chronologically, that's where he was on December 28th and 29th. So this is all I have in Ringel, is I have a citation, and I have these two pictures. Yes, the little Polaroids from 1974. And the note on this says, the house where Beryl captured prisoners and received the Distinguished Service Cross, and the, no, try it again. The Luxembourg War Cross. Okay. Croix de Guerre. Maybe I'll get it right before this is all said and done. But anyhow, so where is this house? Where is the command post? All I have are these black and white pictures. We drove on. Rural roads, no stop signs, and barely a soul in sight. But lo and behold, we found a sign, and it said Ringel. So this is a Google Map picture of the roadway going down into the town. And Mom yells out, that's the house. I think this might be it. So we parked and we compared pictures. And we looked over the front door, and lo and behold, the numbers matched. The keystone above it said 1937, as did the notes that were in the thing. 1837. So glad you're here, Mom. Thank you.
That was the year the house was built.
Yes, okay, that was the year the house was built. So here we are, looking around the whole 9 yards, trying to figure things out and stuff. No one's home. We're just happy we found the place. So I take the notes and the pictures, and I write a note, and it just says, I can't read this, so hopefully you can. Private William J. McKenzie, U.S. Army, all of his citations, but captured the 16 Germans that surrendered in a barn at this location. I left my contact information and copies of the citation. As you can see, I left this all on the doorway. So this image, which you can't see now, but this is the video of me talking and giving the whole description of what happened that time with Mr. Bill, and I'm going to tell you his story when I read you the official citation. But anyhow, this is the video. And in the video, you hear a big old tractor coming down the road, so I stop and I pause. So you can see the roadway area here next up. But so that tractor had a driver, and his name was Jacoby. And Jacoby came and approached us in speaking German, and I'm like, oh God. And so Ben, bless him, said, I can help with this, and speaks to Jacoby and says, do you speak English? And he says, yes. And so I asked Jacoby questions, and I said, do you know what happened here? He was very concerned why people were walking around his property, etc. He says, no, this is my wife's ancestral home. And I said, do you know what happened here in December 1944? And he says, I do not. And I said, well, let me show you. Let me tell you what was going on. So he didn't know any of the history from World War II, but when I showed him this photo, and again, he could see it, he noticed it was his mother-in-law standing there in that picture with Mr. Bill in 1974, and then he started believing him. So I asked him about a barn, and I said, this is the barn I'm looking for, and again, it's in the picture. Do you know where it is? And he says, yes, it's behind the house. And so we go around the back of the house, and there it is. So there's Mr. Bill standing in front of the house, in front of the barn in 1974, and this is the barn as we found it in 2024. So Jacoby was now a believer, and he promised to share my story at dinner with his family. He says she's not going to say a word at dinner. She's going to love hearing all this great stuff. So we spent about an hour with Jacoby there, looking at the barn, looking at pictures. I gave him all the documentation and shared information with him. Mona, who is again the historian, and Ben shared information with him, and so they're pointing out different parts of the community and the town. So this is why Mr. Bill received the Distinguished Service Cross as a result of this. So in this barn at this time, and this is again December 1928 and 29, that day a German stronghold had counterattacked at Ringgold, Luxembourg. Private McKenzie held his position at the Company H 2nd Battalion, 319 Infantry Command Post. He killed 30 enemy soldiers and wounded 5, and then forced 16 more into a nearby barn. He then ran into the barn alone and forced all 16 to surrender. Later, he spotted an enemy rocket launcher team. Crawling to within grenade-throwing range, he killed 2 and wounded another, repelling the attack. So that ended the attack that was happening in Luxembourg. So here is Mom and I in front of the house. Mission accomplished. I'm so happy that this is done. An aerial view, just so again you guys can see, the main road that they're coming in is the road that's there in the center. The house is, again, didn't have any of this information prior to going there. This is what I've now pulled since we've been home. The house then stands there at the intersection, and the barn's behind it. So then from there, they went to, these are just images of towns and things that just, I can't even fathom that what they went through. So the next place we went to was Dahl. And so this again is documented. This is January 1945. McKenzie and a few soldiers rested in a farmhouse in Dahl, feet against the fire, sitting on the sofa. They could hear the shells being fired over them. They could almost tell by the sound of the shells if it was going to hit them or fall short. All of a sudden, a shell hit the far wall of the house. He recalls only seeing a flash. A lieutenant found him covered in debris, and on the opposite side of the room from where he had originally been seated. He survived with only a dent the size of a baseball in his helmet. One man suffered a kneecap missing and part of his left arm gone, while another took shrapnel to the groin. So the reason that we went to Dahl was not only because I wanted to see Dahl, but also because there was a man in Mr. Bill's unit, and his name was, his name was Day G. Turner, and he was a staff sergeant of the 80th Infantry, and he received the Medal of Honor because of his, what happened with him on this, and this event. So his citation from the Medal of Honor reads this. He commanded a 9-man squad with the mission of holding a critical flank position. When overwhelming numbers of the enemy attacked under the cover of weathering artillery, mortar, and rocket fire, he withdrew his squad into a nearby house. Determined to defend it to the last man, the enemy attacked again and again and again and were repulsed with heavy losses. Supported by direct tank fire, they finally gained entrance into the house, but the intrepid sergeant refused to surrender, although 5 of his men were wounded and 1 was killed. He boldly flung a can of flaming oil at the first wave of attackers, dispersing them, and fought doggedly from room to room, closing within the enemies within a fierce hand-to-hand combat encounters. He hurled hand grenades for hand grenades, bayonet, and 2 fanatical Germans who rushed in the doorway that he was defending, and he fought with the enemy's weapons when his own ammunition was expended. That savage fight raged on for 4 hours, and finally, when only 3 men of the defending squad were left unwounded, the enemy surrendered. 25 prisoners were taken, 11 enemy dead, and a great number wounded were counted. Sergeant Turner's valiant stand will live on as the constant inspiration to his comrades. His heroic inspiration and leadership and determination and courage, devotion to duty, exemplified the highest tradition of military services. Sergeant Turner then died 3 days later. He was how do you say it? After he died, he received the Medal of Honor. He did not receive it as a result of that. Or well, he did receive it as a result of that, but he didn't get it until after he died. So anyhow, long story short, very emotional day. We are at the top of Luxembourg up here, and we need to get back down here. And public transportation is free, but it's like 11:30 at night. And so, lo and behold, we are very fortunate. We go and we stop to have dinner at a charming local restaurant, celebrated with 2 bottles of champagne and a meal of traditional Luxembourg menu items. Do not recommend the raw scallops. Mom seemed to like them, but it was a delicacy that I was not looking for. But so here we are, full circle, mission accomplished. Ben and Mo drove us back to Luxembourg City. We arrived back to our hotel well after midnight. 17,000 steps at lunchtime and countless more by the time we collapsed, exhausted, elated, and grateful. That night I called home, not just to share our joy, but to pass on the story of Private William J. McKenzie, or Mr. Bill, onto those who loved him and remembered him, because heroes like him deserve to be remembered, not just with medals, but with stories. So that night I called my dad, who's here with us today, and I said to him, Dad, I found him. And Dad says, what do you mean you found him? I said, I didn't just find him. I said, well, we found him. And I said, we traced those steps, we did all this stuff. And he's like, I'm so proud of you. He goes, I'm glad this worked out for you. This is amazing. And Mom says, again, blessings with angels, because there was no way that any of this should have happened. Had nothing except for photocopies and whatnot. My next phone call was to Brendan and Richard, who were his next door neighbors where they lived, and they were having family dinner. And it wasn't just them having family dinner, but they knew that this was the day that I was going to be in Luxembourg. And so she pushed back the iPad, and the whole family's there. And I retell the story to both of them, and we're all crying, and we're a hot mess, and it was just incredible. So I was so lucky to be able to share with them this wonderful experience that we had. So we started our day again in Luxembourg proper with a city tour. We then went to Edelbrook, Heidersburg, Ringel, Wirtz, Clairvaux, Dahl, Edelbrook, Luxembourg proper again. Modes of transportation: bus, walking, tram, walking, train, walk some more. Met Ben and Mona, finally a car driver, and determined tour guides. So this is over on the table there, and it hangs in my living room. It was also on the wall that piqued my interest when I saw the Distinguished Service Cross. So by the time that Mr. Bill was discharged from the military, he had earned the Distinguished Service Cross, the Luxembourg
Croix de Guerre.
Thank you. The Bronze Star, a Good Conduct and Campaign Medals, 4 Battle Stars, the Victory and Occupation Medals, Expert Rifleman Distinction in Pistol, Rifle, Carbine, Machine Gun, Automatic Rifle, and with Mortar. And all of these accomplishments happened within the span of just 10 months while in Europe by a 23-year-old man. So here is a copy of the General Order that on the 3rd page announces Mr. Bill for the Distinguished Service Cross. So this is what it says. The President of the United States of America, authorized by an act of Congress July 9, 1918, takes great pleasure in presenting the Distinguished Service Cross to Private William J. McKenzie, U.S. Army, for extraordinary heroism in connection with military operations on 29 December 1944. His repeated heroism, courage, and loyalty exemplifies the highest traditions of U.S. Army and brings great credit to the U.S. Infantry, 80th Infantry, and to himself. So that's kind of the summary of what it says. So here's a picture of the Distinguished Service Cross and of the Bronze Star. Here's a citation that Roger helped me get straightened out with military times to be able to put with his obituary and the proper place of where he's being buried. Here is a copy of the citation with the Croix de Guerre and a picture of the Croix de Guerre. And so just for information for you all, because I'm sure many of you are not familiar with what it is a military decoration of Luxembourg. It was created on the 17th of April, 1945 by the Grand Duchess Charlotte of Luxembourg. The War Cross recognizes military service and feats of bravery. The medal is also referred to as the Luxembourg Croix de whatever. And as the French is one of Luxembourg's 3 official languages. Luxembourg bestowed the War Cross on both Luxembourg citizens and members of the Allied forces for acts of particular bravery or valor during the liberation of Luxembourg. The War Cross can also be awarded to military units. It is one of the rarest forms of foreign decorations bestowed to an Allied troop due to the small number of combat operations that actually took place in Luxembourg, in contrast to the major fighting that took place in places like Belgium, France, and Germany. The medal, which you will see a copy of in the shadow box, is the one on the far right. It is a dark bronze cross. Has a large C on the center of it, and the reverse side has the date 1940. The cross has cross swords between the 2 of it, and it has the ribbon, which is Nassau blue with 3 stripes of yellow, orange spiked equally from the center. So here again is the movement that Mr. Bill went across Europe. Mom and I focused most of our travel in what we were doing along that red line area. They then went to the Bastogne War Museum in Belgium afterwards, which was pretty amazing. Here are some more pictures from along the route of things he did. Here are citizens returning home after the liberation of Luxembourg in 1945. But so here, I wanted to share this information because this took some research to find out. But in his interview that he had done, he mentioned that he was summoned to go to the European Military Officers Headquarters Command Post, which happens to be in Versailles, France, just outside of Paris, for something he knew nothing about, and he was convinced that he was in really big trouble. But it was that day that he was given, it was actually the Flag Day, and General Patton, Bradley, and Montgomery shook his hand. And here these were 3 of the most decorated soldiers from each of the outfits of the Third Army. And it was where he received the Distinguished Service Cross. It was a day that he would always remember. And he said to me, and I think that he said this to the Coxes as well, and this is why Bill Hall and I spent time doing all the research to try to get him upgraded to the Medal of Honor. Most people who received the Medal of Honor died, but he lived. And he said that when Patton shook his hand, he said to him, excuse again my language, you lucky son of a bitch. Had you died, you would have gotten the medal, but instead you get this. I can't imagine General Patton actually saying that, but that is what Mr. Bill said to us. One of the things that Mr. Bill was most proud of was he was part of liberating 4 German concentration camps. This is Buchenwald. And if you look at the top, you can see the clock. It says 3:14 p.m. because 3:14 p.m. on April 11th, 1945 is when it was finally liberated. From the research that we have, that we've done, or that we can find about it, it was one of the most brutal concentration camps to be at. The statistics are staggering. I don't want to share what they are, but I mean, it was just horrible. This here is the description of the entrance of the gate that says, to each what he deserves. And so I find that the irony of that is that was what they saw as prisoners going in, but that's also what the Americans saw when they went in to liberate them as well and took them hostage. So fair warning, some of these pictures are graphics, so close your eyes if you don't want to see them. But here are soldiers who are, these are prisoners, these are primarily Polish prisoners who are lined up for a roll call in the morning. Here's some other soldiers, or some other prisoners. And this is what they found when they went in April of 1945. And this was the German soldiers who were surrendering to them as they were going after them. So this is the second part of Mr. Bill's adventure in Europe, following the Green Line. This is the part of the trip that I have not done yet, but I think it's something I'd like to do. I don't necessarily think I want to go and do the concentration camps, but they are noted as the 4 that are on there that he was a part of liberating as he went across. So when he came home, or when he finished his time, he was in Austria and they were waiting for the Russians. For the rest of the time in the war, he served as a jeep driver and a captain's orderly. So he was pretty out from the front lines now by that point in time. Mr. Bill worked for Social Security, and this is after his trip in 1974, where he received a hero's welcome back at the office. They wrote this wonderful article, which is over there in English, and you can read that. So post-war for Mr. Bill, what did that look like? He was discharged from the Army on October 21st, 1945. He married Wilma McKenzie on June 29th, 1947, and they were married for 63 years. He returned to work at Oriole and then at Locke and Slater, and finally at Social Security Administration, where he retired in 1977. As I mentioned, he had 7 brothers, 5 of whom served in World War II, and 1 sister. He moved to Carroll County, Maryland in 1971. He was a life member of Reese Volunteer Fire Department, a life member of VFW Post 467, and a life member of American Legion Post 31. He was also a founding member of the Catholic War Veterans of Carroll County. He enjoyed hobbies such as his model trains, his model cars, and of course, his 1948 Dodge. So these are just some pictures that we found in his documentation that he had, but this is all coming from the 80th Infantry Division Alumni Association, which is still very active. There he is with Bill Burroughs, who did receive the Medal of Honor. No, sorry, he received the Silver Star. And then Mr. Bill is being interviewed by some folks. So Mr. Bill passed away on June 18th, 2019. So we did get to see the 75th anniversary of D-Day. Ms. Wilma asked me to speak at his funeral, and I was honored and heartbroken to do that. And I revealed a side of Mr. Bill that many of his friends and fellow firefighters never knew. I spoke of his valor and of his humility and of his extraordinary wartime service. And there's Richard, who took Mr. Bill on the last ride the morning of his service in his beloved 1948 Dodge. And we buried them together down at Evergreen Memorial Cemetery. A year after Miss Wilma had died, Brenda called me and said, Miss Wilma wanted you to have all Mr. Bill's treasures because she knew that I would keep his story alive. So these became a powerful and tangible reminder that his story wasn't finished, and that something that I needed to share with other people and that I needed to experience with my own eyes. So when Mom said, I want to go to Luxembourg, or I want to go to Amsterdam, I said, okay, I'll go with you, but this is what I want to do. Because what Mr. Bill meant to me is that he embodied every word that we reserve for the best among us. A friend, someone with whom you share a bond of mutual affection. A hero, someone admired for achievements and notable qualities. A patriot, one who vigorously supports their country. Gallant, nobly chivalrous and self-sacrificing. Dependable, trustworthy and reliable. Valor, boldness in facing great danger with heroic courage. Carl Sandburg once said, valor is a gift. Those having it never knew it for sure whether they have it until the test comes. General George Patton, Mr. Bill's commanding officer, said, it is foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died. Rather, we should thank God that such men lived. So today, I am honored to share your story with him. I'm also honored to share my story with my mom. And so that we can remember, we can honor, and that we can give thanks. Because those of us who knew Mr. Bill, or men who like Mr. Bill, we're all blessed to know them. As death may end a life, but does not end a relationship. And what a remarkable life Mr. Bill lived. So. And there's that museum, or that monument that they laughed at me about and said, no, Katie, that's not Mr. Bill, that's General Patton. So I will always remember Mr. Bill telling me that that was his statue and that I went to Luxembourg to go find it, and it was not him, even though he was there.
Does anybody have questions?